Hey, it's Deb again. Welcome to iClimb, and today we're going to do some torso stability work and bringing you back to center from thoracic offset, forward posture, all of that. Thoracic offset just means your torso doesn't sit centered over your hips. So in other words, right now, I'm off to my right, your left. Centered is where the shoulders are in line with the hips. So, and a lot of you, especially if you lean in your easy chair or when you drive or when you're riding, whatever, that's not a good idea. Just always make sure that those are centered. That will also, in this case, create tightness on the right side of my back. Because of the direction that I'm leaning, I may feel it actually in the left hip because of the challenges of my body pulling to the right. So just an FYI. All right, we're gonna start at the hips. Again, this is core, top of the head to pelvic floor. We're gonna start with pelvic tilts. Always a good place to start. Again, I recommend one hand in front, one hand in back. Low abdominals, take you to the back. Paraspinals, give you anterior tilt. Again, belly button is your reference point, goes forward, it's anterior tilt. Backwards, using muscles on the anterior chain, low abdominals in this case. Paraspinals. So your body's most functional angles are 90 degrees. There's always a musculoskeletal component. In this case, it's low abdominals and the paraspinals. So back and up. And again, this will help relieve tightness in the low back, balancing out those hips. And you may notice even a weight distribution balancing as you do this. You should notice increased range of motion, decreased tightness. Your body is only as strong as your range of motion, so the more that you limit anything, especially in the hips, the more that you're limiting your functional ability, because your functional ability is always directly related to your range of motion. So we need to really work on range of motion, especially in the hips. So anterior, posterior, and again, do as many as you have to increase your range of motion and alleviate tightness. I would get in the habit of doing this one on a regular basis, especially if you have issues in the hips and the low back, because this is really important, or gait issues for that matter. And forward and backward. So let's do 4 more each direction. So 4, this is anterior. We can open up the shoulders, and back, and forward, and back. And 2 more. Anterior tilt, posterior tilt. Again, without collapsing the torso. Last one, forward, and then we're gonna drop this back. Now, one of the things that happens in thoracic offset, and when you shut down your gait or go to hip rotation, you've got a muscle that goes from the bottom of your rib to the top of the hip on the back side called the quadratus lumborum. It's a major stabilizer, but it's also involved in gait, so allowing that hip to come forward. If it's locked up and tight, so when you look in the mirror, if you've got one tighter, that's a problem. All right, so it has to be able to move. Those muscle fibers run this way, so it has to be able to allow those hips to move forward and backward. If you've got one tighter, one of the ones that I like to do is to slide over so that one cheek is on the chair. All right, you're gonna grab onto the opposite side of the chair. You're gonna sit upright. In other words, don't lean, because now your hips are still off. You wanna be as balanced as you can. Put the, in this case, left foot in line with the hip, and I'm gonna take this one backwards, okay? And I'm gonna just allow that hip to drop down toward the floor. So when I do that, I can feel a stretch here, maybe even here, the front of the hips. That's never a bad thing. I'm just gonna hold that, because you got a lot of layers, a lot of things that's going on here. I also recommend that the top of the foot be flat to the floor, not up on your toes. You may get a stretch in the top of the foot. That's not a problem. That's actually a good thing. Just gonna hold that and allow that hip to drop. Paraspinals, QLO, a little bit of lat, glute medius, all involved, as well as the hip flexors and the top of the quads and top of the foot. So again, multitasking here. Just allowing those things to stretch out and to open up. See if you can drop that hip down a little further. And I always tell people, you'll kind of know. If you tell yourself, okay, when I got there on a scale of 0 to 10, if 10 was the most, 0 was none, where are your tightness and the numbers? So when you first got there, it may have been a 6. By the time you finished, it might have been a 3. Try as best you can to get it to drop to at least a 3 or below, because that'll give you better ability to do whatever's next. So now we're going to go to the other side. And there's nothing wrong with doing this twice on each side. You always notice a difference. So again, you're going to slide over onto one cheek. That foot has to be in line here. So in other words, it can't be over here, over here. Again, stability. So that whole chain from the foot to the shoulder has to have integrity. Hang on to the chair, keep the chest up and the head up. Drop this back and allow the hip to drop. And again, you may feel this in a combination of places. Front of the hip, quad. Glute medius, which is this one right here, that works with that QLO we talked about. And just allow that to stretch and drop. Let all those layers just open up. So now, this is one, again, if you got one hip that's higher than the other, you'll definitely notice that one side's tighter. My suggestion with that, if you've always got one side or one hip that's higher, is do the tighter side, do the other side, and go back and do the other one again. You'll always notice the difference the second time around, and that'll help give you a little better balance. So in other words, that tightness, you're addressing the tighter side a little bit more because it needs more attention. So you're just going to hold that. And again, see if you can get that hip to drop. You may even feel it in the front of the hip, which is perfectly fine too, especially if you've got any rotation. And again, that foot in the back, top of the foot flat to the floor rather than up on the toes to maximize your opportunity to work on foot-ankle mobility. Okay, so we've worked anterior, posterior. Now we've kind of worked right to left to balance that out. You're going to come back to the center of your chair on the edge, all right? So now, and here's the key too, as you're working, you want to make sure you work multiple planes of movement. So we just worked kind of right to left, but now we're going to work right to left in a different way. We worked it this way, now we're going to go right to left this way. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up those feet. The toes, the knees, and the hips need to all be facing the same direction. So let's take that right forearm, put it on the leg, all right? And you're going to take that left arm and you're going to reach. Now, a lot of you will be here because of tightness. Even if you can't touch your head, keep the arm straight. As soon as you bend, you lose the demand in that chain. Keep this hip on the chair. So you may feel this more than any place, as I do, in my hip if I feel it any place. You may feel it here. You've got a muscle that goes from the outside border of the scapula, your shoulder blade, to the rib cage. When you're tilted forward, that serratus gets really tight. That's why you're feeling that here. Also use this opportunity to keep the head up, the chest open, and work on your breathing with the diaphragm. So when you breathe in through the nose, which you should with the diaphragm, you should feel that rib cage expanding. So some of you that have breathing issues, blood pressure issues, which is directly related, you need to be doing this one. Again, you've got multiple things that are involved here, multiple layers. Just let it stretch. Nice deep breathing. Again, keep that arm nice and straight. The hip has to stay down. And you're going to reach. Again, you've got this arm here, so don't be afraid to lean over because it's going to help you. As long as the hip stays down, you're not going anywhere. And then you're going to come back. So now, left forearm, and we're going to reach up and over. Again, the head up and the chest up, not here. So open that up, keep that opposite hip on the chair, and you're just going to breathe and you're going to stretch. Now, the diaphragm, which goes all the way around underneath the rib cage, and the muscles between your ribs are 60% of your breathing. 60. If your diaphragm And your rib cage can't expand, neither can your lungs. That's a big deal. That's why posture, one of the reasons posture is so important. Rib cage open, so you can engage that diaphragm. Breathe, big stretch, and you're gonna hold that. And you're gonna bring it back. And then we're gonna do each side one more time, so you're gonna reach over. Now already you may notice that there's less tightness and you can reach further. That's a good thing. Remember what I said. You're only as strong as your range of motion, and your range of motion is directly related to your functional ability. So you're gonna reach, nice deep breathing, let it stretch, let it stretch, let it stretch. The truth is you need to be getting your arms over your head every single day. That always will reposition the rib cage and the scapula. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Nice big stretch, nice big breath. Don't hold your breath, or don't hold your breath, only the position. And you're gonna breathe. Again, time. One of the things that people always say to me is I realized I wasn't holding it long enough. Don't get in a hurry. Again, you've got layers of things that need to be activated and released. Nice big stretch. Reaching over, again, keeping that opposite hip on the chair. Nice big reach. And breathe, and remember to keep the head up, shoulders open, and hold. And we're gonna bring it back. So now we're gonna bring these feet in. So now we're gonna work in what's called, again, the transverse plane. In other words, top to bottom. You wanna keep the hips still. Upper body needs to work independent of the lower. I shouldn't have to turn everything when I turn over. Just like when if I'm looking over my shoulder, I shouldn't have to turn my entire body to get there. Hips need to be still. So we're gonna work on those obliques and serratus and allow that body to be able to rotate. More than you realize, you should be able to do that on a regular basis. People start using their arms and not their torso. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna reach around counterclockwise to the left. I'm gonna keep my shoulders level. So in other words, I'm not doing this. If I need to, in this case, I can grab on the inside of the chair, keep my chest open, working on muscles in the mid-torso. Feet, legs, knees are forward. Pay attention to how far you can look over your shoulder. Feel that shoulder blade coming down and back toward midline on that left side. And again, you're just gonna hold that. Nice deep breathing, holding the position, not your breath. This will also help your head turn. And then we're gonna bring it back, and we're gonna do the other side. So we're gonna turn again from the torso, it's not the arms, and see how far we can look over that shoulder. Keep the shoulders level. In other words, not here, or not this one up here. Down and back like you're putting your shoulder blades in your back pockets. So shoulders are back and down. Nice deep breathing. And again, using the diaphragm, making sure the rib cage opens. Allow those muscles, that serratus that gets shut down, to do its job. You have anterior and posterior, one on the lateral border and one that goes underneath the scapula and around to the back. And then you're gonna bring it back. And we're gonna do each side one more time. So you're gonna turn. Now, if you notice, my range is way different than it was the first time. You should always notice that if you're doing it correctly. Again, you're retraining those muscles to do what they were meant to do. Range of motion. I'm turning. Now I can look all the way literally over my left side, and I wasn't able to do that in the beginning. And I'm gonna hold that. You may even feel it down in the hip, and that's fine too. And again, you're gonna hold, hold, hold. And I would say hold that even a little longer. Then we're gonna come around and we're gonna do the other side one more time. Again, you should notice there's more balance and you've got more range on both sides. Realize how much when you get that rib cage open, that's gonna make a difference in organ function. Instead of everything being collapsed and forward and scrunched up, now everything, not just your lungs, but everything's gonna be able to function a lot better. All right, last but not least, in this one, you're gonna interlace your fingers. Now back to anterior, posterior. As best you can, turn those arms inside out. If they don't wanna straighten, keep your hands here, all right? If you can, straighten those arms, turn them inside out. Feet are forward, and as we raise those arms, we're gonna look at the hands and drop the head back. Now, don't lean back. It's about keeping the head and the shoulders over the hips while you're engaging the torso. This is one we use to recenter. We use it for headaches, we use it for sinus drainage. And that head should drop back. Now in the beginning, that may not be comfortable, and you may even feel a stretch on scalenes, and that's perfectly fine. Again, if those are too tight, it's because muscles on the back of that neck, your cervical paraspinals aren't doing their job. This will also increase blood flow to the back of the neck, which means you get more in the brain as well. Now this is one you're supposed to hold. Again, challenge, don't force. And as you come down, we're gonna go slow. If you are not used to getting oxygen from here to here and you're a mouth breather, you may get a little lightheaded. That doesn't mean don't do it. That means keep practicing so that you can breathe in through your nose as you're meant to. When you drop that head forward, you're shutting all that down. As soon as you take that up, that's why it's good for sinus drainage, is because now it opens all those up and gives you a chance for those sinuses to drain and engage everything in the back of that neck. So we're gonna do that one more time. So let's interlace. Let's take it up slowly. You should feel the chest come forward, the head drop back, and probably even feel like there's more range than you had the first time. You may feel it again on the torso. Recentering you. Changing your posture. This is excellent for scoliosis too, by the way. Because again, you're balancing those muscles right to left on the paraspinals. That'll literally change the position of that spine if they're in balance. You're gonna hold that. Ideally 2 minutes, that's a long time. So we can start with 30 seconds, work your way up, and then we're gonna slowly bring it down. And take a deep breath. I always recommend that after you do that, sit for a minute, stand up, and when you stand up, get your bearings, notice what you feel. People will say, I feel more grounded, I feel like there's more weight in my heels. Again, awareness, you can't change what you're not aware of. So always make sure that you assess, that you try to be aware as much as you possibly can. But that'll help you, give you more range in the torso and work on thoracic offset and torso rotation.